Hello everyone. Today we'll be doing a lesson on the prologue of Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. But before we begin Romeo and Juliet, here are some questions to think about. 1. What do you think Romeo and Juliet will be about? 2. Do you think that this will be interesting to read? Why or why not? 3. What is a tragedy? Define it in your own words and or give an example of it from real life. For example, the news, your life, or someone you know, etc. 4. Do you think Romeo and Juliet can apply to you, especially as a teenager? Why or why not? 5. When you read tragic love, what do you think it means? Go ahead and pause this video, taking 10 minutes to answer the questions. Once you're finished, go ahead and talk with a partner about your responses. So now that we talked a bit about Romeo and Juliet and connected it to us, let's start with the prologue. What is a prologue? Pause here briefly and answer this question. I will be now playing a clip from the Romeo plus Juliet 1996 movie. Please follow along with your text and think about what the prologue is telling us as we watch this clip.
Two households, both alike in dignity, in fair Verona, where we lay our scene. From ancient grudge break to new mutiny, where civil blood makes civil hands unclean. From forth the fatal loins of these two foes, a pair of star-crossed lovers take their life, whose misadventured piteous overthrows doth with their death bury their parents' strife. The fearful passage of their death-marked love and the continuance of their parents' rage, which but their children's end naught could remove, is now the 2 hours traffic of our stage.
Two households, both alike in dignity, in fair Verona, where we lay our scene. From ancient grudge break to new mutiny, where civil blood makes civil hands unclean. From forth the fatal loins of these two foes, a pair of star-crossed lovers take their life.
Now that you guys watched the movie clip, it should give you more of a hint of what the prologue is telling us. Let's try to decipher some of the vocabulary being used here in the prologue. First we have here is ancient grudge. In this clip specifically, we have a newspaper article outlining the conflict between two different yet similar families, and they seem to be competing against each other. So what do you think? Next, we have the word mutiny. Again, in the movie clip, we see someone holding up a gun. They look very aggressive. So what do you think mutiny is based off of the clip? Now, this is a very important word and ties into the theme of tragic love that you thought about with earlier questions. In the image which was taken from the clip that we watched previously, what do you think star-crossed means, and how does it apply to Romeo and Juliet? Finally, we have the word piteous. It looks and sounds very similar to a word that you may know. Now, based off the similarity to another word and the other words surrounding it, what do you think piteous means? Now that we've broken down some of the vocabulary and watched the clip that helps supplement the prologue, what is the prologue telling us about the upcoming story of Romeo and Juliet? And what predictions can you make based off what we know so far? Now we will break down the first 4 lines. As an example, try to notice the rhyme scheme that Shakespeare uses and its purpose for the prologue as well. You will then apply what we are doing with the first 4 lines to the rest of the prologue. The first 4 lines are, two households, both alike in dignity, in fair Verona where we lay or seen, from ancient grudge break to new mutiny, where civil blood makes civil hands unclean. Now, of course, we have our 2 households. Here we have the Capulets and the Montagues as seen in the movie clip. And when we say alike, like means to similar things, and dignity can refer to your social status. Therefore, we assume that these 2 households, the Capulets and the Montagues, are very similar in social status. Now let's talk about the second line. We have, in fair Verona. Do you guys know where Verona is? If you said Italy, you are correct. Now, where we lay our scene. What are you thinking when you hear scene or laying the scene? What I purposely hear is the setting. The setting is the scene, so the primary setting of the story is in Verona. Now, we just discussed what ancient grudge means and what mutiny means. If you were able to state that grudge refers to a long-standing argument, which is implied also by the word ancient, and mutiny as a rebellion or some sort of bloody disagreement between 2 parties, then you'd be pretty close. So we have here in this third line that this ancient grudge is going to bring about a mutiny or a rebellion, and a very bloody one at that. Finally, for this 4th line, we again have this bloody conflict implied between the 2 families, and it was originally between just the families, and now when we see the word civil hands unclean, it has shown that the conflict has spilled over into civilians or people who are not associated with the families. It's basically become a civil war, and now they have civilian blood on their hands because of this conflict. Now that I've given you an example of how to analyze and figure out what a prologue means, or at least the first 4 lines, now I want you guys to try to figure out what the rest of the prologue is telling us. It's definitely giving us a hint of what is about to come in Romeo and Juliet. So now I'll be putting 4 lines at a time on the screen. Feel free to pause it and figure out what these lines mean. You can also use the movie clip to help your thinking. You've already done some of the figuring out by using some of your vocabulary skills and by using the movie clip. So now it's your time to utilize those tools to try to figure out what the prologue is telling us. Anyways, I hope that you enjoyed this quick lesson about Romeo and Juliet and its prologue. At this point, you should have some skills to be able to, quote, draw conclusions, infer, and analyze by citing relevant and thorough textual evidence to support analysis of what the text says explicitly, as well as inferences drawn from the text, and determine the meaning of words and phrases as they are used in the text, including figurative and connotative meanings, using context, affixes, or reference materials. These are all standards on the Missouri Department of Education website, and these are all the ELA standards for grade 9. I hope you're enjoying my quick lesson on the prologue of Romeo and Juliet, and that this helps you in your future reading of it. Thank you!